Hello everyone, this is Blackbird Senpai speaking, and today I wanted to bring you guys a different type of video. Something obviously not like the ones I've been posting where I go to a different event, go to a different venue, talk to different artists, etc. I wanted to bring you guys something a little bit more about me to kind of give a background to not only the music that I like as far as EDM is concerned, but kind of how I stumbled upon EDM as an individual. Not just, I was in high school, then Skrillex came on, then I went on the path of searching up more music. More of like what different instances in my life led me to different types of sounds that would end up being EDM kind of thing. And I want to start with something not too far back, but is at this point kind of a classic, and it would be from the video game Mass Effect 2. Now, in Mass Effect 2 is a very long story, but essentially you play as a character named Shepard. And as Shepard, whether you're male or female, there's a club you have to go to, and that club is called Afterlife. Now, Afterlife is a very pivotal moment within the game for many players, not because something so dramatic happens, but because of the ambiance and the energy that's within the club. Think of one of those crazy 90s nightclubs that you see in like one of those TV shows back in the day, or a movie or anything like that. Blade may come to mind, but at the upteenth, just like maxed out in the most cyber, super apocalyptic, way far off into the future type of way. Different types of aliens and all types of different things. And the track that gets played during that is something that always gives a harrowing but very exciting feeling. That track is Kalista by Saki Kaska, and I want to say I'm saying it correctly. It's from a Greek Canadian, so I know there's a couple of things going on with that name, but essentially with the track, it is very melodic, ambient, but I could see it being played in a club today. But I would call it futuristic. It is this very smooth transition to what we have now, but what could be maybe seen in the future. And that's, I think, is why it's such an impactful track to so many people as far as who play the game, because again, it's a futuristic setting. And the composer for it, which is Saki Koska, I forget his real name, I'll put it up right here. Essentially, he is very known throughout EA's whole catalog of video games. He has made many, many different tracks. Actually, from what I know, I think the track from Mass Effect 2 might have been in Need for Speed, I believe, and that threw me off as well. So for some people, this is a Need for Speed track that they grew up with. So again, a very legendary musician essentially, and sadly he passed away in 2016, but his music will be remembered on not only for this track but for many others and what he did for gamers throughout the world. Now, for some of you that don't know, I'm a pretty big wrestling fan. I won't say I'm super, super into it, but if you guys saw my San Antonio video, I keep bringing up the Royal Rumble. That is something that I went to and I very much enjoyed. So, to say that at least at one point I was would be an understatement. When I was a kid, wrestling is all I ever wanted to talk about, ever wanted to do. It was essentially my life. I also trained to be a wrestler. If you see me in public, you know I'm a pretty big guy. So it's kind of par for the course. I tried to see if it was for me, and it wasn't. But here we are. But one thing that always gets me is their promos, their promo packages for different events and wrestlers. How they can make someone or something seem even larger than life. And one time they did that was for their WWE network. It's actually defunct now. It doesn't even exist anymore, but they had a streaming service where you could watch all the wrestling that you could really watch for $9.99 a month. And the promo that they did for it had Benny Benassi's Cinema, but it was a Skrillex remix. And it, again, is one of those things where I fall right back in love with dubstep. I took my step away from it, and to hear that track and how they infused it with something else I loved, and how it really conveyed just, again, not only the larger than life, but the pageantry that is professional wrestling. It's probably one of my more favorite tracks simply off of that. And yeah, essentially the best way for me to give it its flowers is to kind of just give you guys a real quick snippet of the track. This whole video is going to be copyrighted. What this is for me is kind of like a pure fusion of some of my two favorite things, and you can't really get better than that when it comes to your favorite medias. The next one is kind of cheating, but Not really, because it still fits the description. What I was looking for was the Nero Me and You commercial from Fox way back. I want to say it was Fox. It might have been ABC. It was one of those stations, but I couldn't find it on YouTube. But while I was looking for it, I saw another commercial that I remembered from years ago. And it was the Colors Beats by Dre, and they were using the track. And the reason I remember this commercial is because it's absolutely ridiculous. Essentially, they have people with the different color headphones for the beats, and they're throwing paintballs at them, like balloons full of paint, and like it's getting splattered all over them. And I guess it's supposed to be showing that they're getting blasted with this music, or like this is how robust the sound is. That just is like it's just paint splatter all over your face. And I'm not sure how I felt about the commercial, especially watching it now. Is by all means ridiculous. You have Dr. Dre in the beginning, winding up, throwing a paintball at a guy, and I get it. I'm sure he got paid very well, all the things, but I just the amount of pissed I'd be if Dr. Dre threw a paint balloon at me would be immense, let alone it being showed to billions of people across the world. But alas, here we are. The commercial itself isn't all that memorable other than that, and again, they used the track there. Again, it's kind of a cop-out because it wasn't what I was looking for, but I do remember this commercial, and it kind of put me up on Nero. So yeah, it kind of got on here just for that. So this one is really fun because it's probably from one of my old favorite TV shows, and that is the TV show Misfits. If you never watched Hulu back in the day, it might still be on Hulu, I really don't know, I haven't checked in a while. Misfits was the perfect show for somebody who found themselves feeling like they were counterculture, fuck up, anything like that. It was definitely a show that really encapsulated that whole feeling. And one track that came in one of the episodes, I forget which episode, which season, etc., but I always remembered it because it's in my own personal playlist now. And they walked into a club, and the track was, and like, give me a second, I gotta pull this one up. The Justice Phantom Part 2 Boys Noise Unreleased Remix Turbine. Or the Turbine Unreleased Remix, depending on how you write it. It's a very long name. There's a lot of fingers in it, but essentially this was the track, and it is from Justice. It's the Phantom. There is two parts to Phantom, but this is the second part's remix, unreleased version. Whoop-de-whoop. Again, it's very hard to find. There's like one video on YouTube that you can like watch it, and I'll probably put a link in the description. And yeah, that's the only place I'll be able to find it, but it's like one of my favorite songs like ever. And they just had it as a throwaway track in an episode of Misfits, and it's not like on Spotify or YouTube Music or Apple Music. From what I know, it's like just not there, and you have to go to YouTube on this like very random video with the cross to kind of get to it. And if you haven't seen the show, at least try the track. But I'm almost positive if you've seen Misfits, you will remember this track, bar none. I should be playing in the background now. Absolute magic. I love it. So this one is a bit of an honorable mention, and it's back to WWE, but it's actually a theme song specific for a wrestler, and it's the Alexa Bliss's theme song, Spiteful. Now, she has a new theme song nowadays from what I remember, but I remember going to the Royal Rumble some years ago, and she was coming out, and her theme song started to play, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. I've heard it on the video game and the wrestling show, etc., and so on and forth. Always liked the track. Then when the drop came, my ears bled, and still to this day, I'm not sure how I feel about that. We must have been closer to the speaker or whatever, but when I say that, it shook my body. And for the rest of the night, I kept talking about the drop, and not that the wrestling wasn't interesting, but I just kept turning to my friend like, bro, that was crazy. He's like, did you hear that? Like, did you hear that? He's like looking at me like, bro, yeah, like I was there. And that was essentially my night, was telling people how crazy Alexa Bliss's theme song went on like some damn good speakers. And again, it's kind of an honorable mention because it's very repetitive. It doesn't have a lot going for it, and it's pretty much just a drop and a follow through. But it's a damn good drop and follow through. So if you ever just want to just peruse and you want to listen to it, I'll also have it in the description as well. Again, for me, it's a decent track. I won't say it's something I listen to every day, but always like to go to it just, again, for that very specific reason. But this is now time for our last entry within all of this. And this entry actually comes from The Matrix. Rob Dogan's Club to Death is a track that I didn't know was EDM when I first listened to it. You know, when the Matrix came out, I was definitely a little boy. But I remember it because of how it sounds. It's unique to this day. How it goes through its progressions, the types of sounds it conveys, etc., and so on forth. It's hard for me to explain because it's not like anything that is currently out right now either. He definitely, I won't say took liberties, but it's definitely its own song. Good example of 90s EDM. And I say that because all of it was very experimental, very different. Not to say that that isn't the case now, but because we've had so much time, not only with technology, but with the sounds themselves, people are definitely keying in on certain sounds that get reactions and could, in theory, sound the best or just sound better to them, and they just try to manufacture it to a certain degree. Whereas I feel like in the 90s, and you know, people say this about a bunch of different things, but this is somebody who prefers like bro stuff, for instance. Like the early 2010s was my time to shine. But whenever I go back, it's just so fluid. There's so many different types of EDM music that was popping up here and there throughout the mainstream. But I feel like this track, as far as what it meant to the Matrix, like people talk about all the different songs for the Matrix. It had a very good soundtrack, but this one almost is memed. Almost, it takes itself so serious, yet it still has this melodic vibe that you would hear at a party. And I think that's what a lot of Matrix fans latched onto during that era. And I feel, again, it's just a really good example of what that is for certain people. But yeah, that's essentially my list right now. I'm sure there's thousands of EDM songs that are in the mainstream. So, you know, if this video does well, halfway anyway, I'll probably try to continue it. I try to be more honest to myself, but I guess after a while, we'll just start seeing different songs that popped up different places, whether it be funny, interesting, or maybe just incredibly important. But yeah, this was Blackbird Senpai speaking. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. You know the whole nine. Yeah, and that's it. Peace.